this.
Well, we're back from the break, and many thanks for watching Smart Means Business wherever you are. This is your daily Kickstarter, and I'm Gerald Paul Sunker. Now, besides the same kind of situation, you are in here watching more of what is making headlines from the world of business. But, well, besides that, with only 6 minutes off the hour of 9 o'clock, be reminded that you can invest in government bonds and quickly do that by using the USSD code *292# with the platform by Altex East Africa, which is Zabo. Zabo says, my money, my future. And obviously, what you need to do is use that way of at least making sure that you can go deeper into the investment world. And of course, as you continue to invest, remember you can use only 15,000 Ugandan shillings, and then you should be able to at least basically have all it takes to invest into Uganda's financial market space. With a minimum of just 15,000 Ugandan shillings, Zabo gives you that advantage to invest in those particular government bonds that are available within time. The opening time is 8:15 a.m. and then the closing time is 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. And please do note that the markets close during the weekends and on public holidays. Zabo, my money, my future. Altex East Africa, do something new. Well, now we're heading into our SMB Insight this morning, and SMB Insight today is basically rotating around focus on the foreign trade policies, and of which even in regards, even after the break, we shall be discussing more and widening this discussion on ground with Barige Andrew. And of course, one of the key issues that has been highlighted within this one includes revenues that can be got from the agricultural sector, and then of course where or which other sectors can provide some good money to Uganda's economy, or when it comes to adding value to different products, and especially if it means increasing on the trade volumes within the country, for example, the level of exports and of course the level of goods being produced within the country, and what is affecting the trade volumes, for example. So let's as well take an insight on the foreign trade policies and how they are affecting our economy.
Well, to start with, we're looking at policies from different levels, and I think it would be important that we first of all focus on our national policies. As a country that is negotiating a lot of external trade agreements, I think that one of the key policies that a country has to focus on is putting in place our national trade policy, because we know that it expired in 2018 and since then it has not been renewed. And it is one of the key policies that we think if it is in place, we can see at least increased regulation within the trade sector. So that is one of the policies that I would highlight as something that we really need to focus on. But going beyond the national level, we also have policies that are being put in place, and at the moment at the continental level, a lot of focus is around the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we're seeing a lot of negotiations for a free trade agreement that is going to boost intra-Africa trade, something that has really been so low for quite some time. So here in Uganda, but also beyond Uganda, there's a lot of need for us to focus on ensuring that a lot of input is captured within these negotiations for the AfCFTA, like the investment protocol that has just been concluded. The negotiations for agenda and youth protocol is also ongoing, the intellectual property and competition. So those are some of the policies that we also need to really focus on, especially for this particular year. And something that is always left out still at the national level, I think that it would also be important that this time around we are starting the budget cycle for 2023-2024. It would be really imperative that we put a lot of focus on the budget process, specifically looking at the trade sectors, because if we are to be able to grow the economy, we definitely need to look at how best we support the productive sectors. And that support can only be seen through the budget process if we see adequate funding being allocated to the productive sectors. So that is also one of the other policies or issues that we think really should be followed up on and strengthened, because over time we've seen that there's little focus on trade policy or trade-related policies, yet in actual sense, trade is the driver of the economy, and there's little we can achieve if we do not strengthen our trade sector. Well, trade and investment, and from a Ugandan perspective, one is we still see that our trade volumes are low. We are import dependent, so we rely more on imports, and that is why a lot of times when we see like an increase on fuel, you'll see that all the prices of commodities are going high because we are import dependent, which ideally means we are not producing enough. So that has really affected our trade. And even when we produce, we are exporting a lot of raw materials. Now, when you look at some of the sectors that we have that are really strong, like the coffee sector, you realize that we are exporting almost all our coffee in the raw form, and yet we see that for us that consume coffee, we still have to take coffee that is imported, which I think has really affected a lot our trade and our economy generally. But looking at also the investment sector, for a lot of time we have seen that our investment landscape is skewed in favor of the foreign investors. And in that way, we don't see a conducive environment for the national investors or what we would call the local investors, that even when you read through, say, the investment code that we have in place in Uganda, you realize that it is framed in a manner that is more focused on protecting the rights of the investors, and most of the beneficiaries for that are the foreign investors. So we tend to see that the local investors are really not considered, and they're not benefiting from some of the incentives that are put in place under the investment code. So this has also been hugely affecting our investment landscape. And we continue to see that most of the investments that are being set up are foreign-based investments. And beyond just being foreign-based investments, we see these kind of investments coming into communities, because at the moment we see a lot of land-based investments. We see them coming into the communities, and instead of helping the communities, we see a lot of negative impacts within these particular communities. For instance, we've seen a lot of incidents where thousands of people are taken off their land because a certain investor would like to set up a plantation or so. And what we see is that in the long run, we're not getting the revenue because most of these incentives are even tax exempt. So we're not getting the revenue from them, but also we're not seeing the corporate social responsibility within these communities. And we're seeing that it's just us that are losing a lot. And in fact, at Siatini, we ran a campaign that we've dubbed Life Before Profits, that in the investment policies that we put in place and in the campaigns that we run, we need to prioritize life, which I think is still lacking because our focus as a country has relied so much on the profit side, and we have really sidelined that aspect of the life, and we see communities are losing out. And maybe just to come back to the trade aspect briefly, like I said, we are, yes, so much import dependent, but we're also not investing a lot or arranging our sectors, our trade sectors, to be able to produce and support, especially the communities, the rural communities. We're not seeing a lot of it. That even initiatives that have been put in place, like the parish development model, we still see that there's a gap when it comes to aligning such programs to be able to benefit and to be able to be inclusive in a nature that everyone benefits. So we think that the market sector, the production sector, to be able to fully be productive, we need to realign our sectors and see how best we can put them in order, because what is happening at the moment is this is one of the challenge why we see our economy continuing to cripple, because we are not putting the effort where we ought to. I don't have like statistics on that, but I can tell you that where you see a lot of investment is at the moment and in Uganda is mainly within the land sector. We see a lot of land-based investments, and I think this is because of the growing need for growing agriculture, but also the other land-based activities like mining and so. And when you talk about countries, I know that there's been a lot of discussion around the Chinese companies taking over, but we realize that most of the investments that we have in place as a result of the investment agreements that we have signed with these particular countries. And at the moment, we have, I think, about 10 bilateral investment agreements with 10 particular countries that are running, one of them being the Netherlands. We see German, we see a lot of German-based companies. But I think it is beyond just the countries. In a nutshell, would say that at the moment, when you put it on a scale of locally owned and foreign owned, we see there is a lot of foreign investments within the country as opposed to the local investments. And it goes back to what I earlier on hinted on, that it's because maybe we are giving a lot more to the foreign investors as opposed to the local investors. So we are not supporting these maybe young companies or young investors that would want to be able to put up such huge investments, and that is why we keep seeing that there's a lot of foreign investments coming in within the country. When we talk about tax itself is a development tool. And you cannot tax an economy that is crippling, like you put it. So for us to be able to, and at the moment we see that there are very few people that are paying taxes. And when you go into why they're actually not paying taxes is because the economy is crippling. So that is why we see that at the moment there are less taxpayers. And the solution is not to just widen the tax base, but rather to rearrange our economy, because we've always talked about, for instance, agriculture being the backbone of the country. And we need to look at how best we can be able to tap taxes within the agriculture sector. But that can only be achieved once we have invested as a country within our own agriculture sector, so that it can be able to produce, and in the long run, as a country, we can be able to generate revenue from that. So if we are to be able to enhance our domestic resource mobilization, we need to first arrange our economy, because that is the key player. And if we don't put the sectors right, like I've been trying to break them down to you, then we cannot tax, because tax is on the profits. So if companies are not making profits, that ideally means that you're not going to get enough taxes as you would anticipate or you would wish to have. So I think it takes us back to our planning, our budget, and where our priorities as a country are. We need to really look into where we have a comparative advantage as a country, because that is where we can be able to tax, to tap the taxes that we would want to generate. But at the moment, the question cannot be solved by who is paying payee or who is not paying payee. We need to rearrange our economy, put our sectors right, and bring on board the trade. One thing that I find sometimes we don't really appreciate is that even when we talk about taxes, usually it is URA, it is finance. We leave out trade, even when it comes to the budget process. Yet this is, for instance, trade is a key player when it comes to private sector development, when it comes to strengthening the economy or being able to boost the growth of the economy. So I think that, first of all, it's to give it a holistic approach. We look at how best we can bring these agencies together and rearrange our economy, and also put our priorities straight. With the budgets that we've seen in the previous years, we see that a lot of focus is put in different sectors. We see limited funding to sectors like programs like agro-industrialization, yet we speak about agriculture being the backbone of the country. So we definitely cannot come back to get a lot of resources from the agriculture sector if we are not investing in it. And another thing is around sensitization, which us as Siatini have really tried our best to do, but I feel that it is something that we need to focus more on, because we need to make people appreciate the aspects of taxation and why we have to pay the taxes, because we also want the social services, and with tax it is a social contract. So we need to sensitize more beyond just paying taxes, but also within those particular sectors. For instance, agriculture, and I've really hinted a lot on agriculture. We need to, for instance, if we want to be able to tax maybe the animals or the animal feeds, we need to be able to get to those communities where we are practicing animal husbandry, and see how best we can sensitize them on how best they can boost or strengthen their particular sectors that they are in. That way, I believe we shall be able to generate a lot of revenue, and we shall even be able to, for instance, have enough resources to also maybe contribute to our debt burden and be able to pay some of our debts, which is also a huge challenge that we're facing as an economy. So I think with tax, for us to be able to get a lot of taxes, we need to realign our economy and look at our sectors and look at where our comparative advantage is and put.
And of course, today in the press review, I did highlight that it's a historical day, as Uganda is kick-starting off its first oil drilling, and amongst the key discussions that you should be highly expecting on business today includes this very report. And of course, we do have Ron Nahabo joining us on set to give us more about what we should be expecting from this particular oil drilling, and what is it all about? Why is it historical? And of course, there are also key expectations that President Museveni is heading to Western Uganda today. Good morning, Rona.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm okay. So what should the people expect, and what does this mean to Uganda with the first oil drilling? Does it mean we're going to be having oil today, or it is just
no,
drilling?
Of course not. Okay, people should really expect a lot. This is going to be a benchmark of the first drop of oil in 2025.
Okay.
The President, His Excellency, is going to be officiating the drilling activities at Kingfisher Oil Project in Chukube District.
Okay.
This project has about 31 oil wells. So it's less than compared to what is in Tilenga. Tilenga has about 462 oil well pads, hoping to recover 190,000 barrels of crude oil per day. This is different. So Chukube is going to be recovering about 40,000 barrels of crude oil per day. Tilenga, 190,000 barrels of crude oil per day. Ugandans should really expect, and I'm really glad that the Chinese are very fast with the momentum. Now they're going to officiate this, and the drilling will start. This rig was installed in December because it arrived at Port Mombasa in September. So it was installed in Hoima, in Chukube, in December. So it is already fully installed, and once they have already commissioned, once His Excellency officiates, the function, they will start drilling.
Okay. And of course, Ronan Mahawe does bring to you the fact that President Museveni is going to be the chief guest as he officially kickstarts off this oil drilling in Chukube district, that is at Kingfisher oil field, which was formerly known as Exploration Area. And of course, this is like Rona says, as we look forward to the first drop of Uganda's oil in 2025, this is clearly a huge step towards that same goal. So in the report that you're working on tonight, what else should the people expect?
They should also expect the progress of other projects like Tilenga. We do know that by close of the first quarter, they will also start their drilling activities. Theirs is a little bit bigger because it's an extensive project. The Kingfisher also has a CPF, the Central Processing Facility.
Oh, okay.
So it's the same at Telenga, but you know Telenga also has ECO. So Uganda should really, this year should be a benchmark because we only have now 1 year left. So this year should be a benchmark, and even beyond, more than even a benchmark, it should set the momentum on how we should expect the oil and gas industry to just take shape.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, you can get more proceedings of the same detailed report in tonight's bulletin, Business Today, 9 p.m. As Ronan Ahaba will be bringing you that same report regarding the fast oil drilling happening at the Kingfisher oil field in Chikuba district. Smart Means Business does take a break, and we'll do return with Barije Andrew on ground.